Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Today we have a big show for you. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is baseball predictions. The opening day is tomorrow. All games, I believe, start at 3. The first games of the day start at 3:05. Excuse me. They just got postponed, actually, due to rain. So the Brewers and the Mets and the Phillies and the Braves will not be playing until Friday. But the first game of the day is at 3:05. That's when opening day begins. Every other game, I believe, starts at 4:10 on the East Coast. The Rangers have their World Series game at 7:35 Eastern Time. Anyway, and then there's a couple late West Coast games as well. But opening day for everyone but the Brewers, Mets, Phillies, and Braves is tomorrow. So we're going to do a very special Sports by GSMC Podcast Network baseball prediction show. We're going to go divisions one at a time, the East, the AL and NL East together, the AL and NL Central together, and the AL and NL West together. And we're going to finish off the show with playoff predictions, World Series champion, everything just like that. But before we get too far into our predictions, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net, leave a tip or donation with a message. It'll show up at the bottom of the screen. We'll have a little discussion about what you have to say. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Once again, that link to leave a tip or donation is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, we are going to start off in the AL and NL East. And we'll start off in the AL East, probably one of the more competitive divisions this year, a division that could potentially go 5 deep. You have at the bottom of it, presumably, you have the Red Sox, who tooled up a little bit this offseason. They got a lot better. They made some defensive changes. They brought in some pitching. Today, they just traded for a pitcher from the Rays, actually. 30-year-old who pitched 9 years in Japan. Wasn't going to make the roster on the Rays. Was traded to the Red Sox. So they've shored up a couple of their holes. And you're still in a division with the reigning best record in the AL, Baltimore Orioles, who are calling up Jackson Holliday. They just brought in Corbin Burns. That team improved. The Rays, who started off the last season on an insanely hot pace, made the playoffs, kind of faltered. They lost some players, but they are still really good. The Rays are a very well-run organization. The Yankees tooled up. They added Juan Soto to a lineup that, if they can stay healthy, is one of the scariest tops of the lineups in all of baseball. Toronto still has Vlad Guerrero, cover athlete on MLB The Show. Their pitching is elite up there. Kevin Gausman leading the charge. And then, of course, that's all the teams. But that division is going to be isn't going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. I could see that division taking up all the wild cards. Taking up all the wild card slots this season in the AL. But one team has to win it. So, the way that I'm looking at it here, last year the Orioles were the best team in the AL, and they only got better. It's hard to pick against them. I have the Orioles winning this division. Not easily, though. I don't think they're going to repeat, because that division is going to be a lot better than it was, last season. You have the Yankees, who were hurt all of last season, and now they add in a guy like Aaron Judge, or they add in a guy like Juan Soto to Aaron Judge, who hopefully will be healthy this season. That team is going to be scary once they get Garrett Cole back, which might tank their season a little bit. And Tampa Bay isn't kind of took a step back halfway through last season. I still think they'll be good. I think this division produces at least 3 playoff teams. At least 3 of them. You have your there's a chance that it might even produce four, might give you all all three of those wild cards, but it's gonna be tough for that to happen. So, when I'm looking at the AL East here, my winner is, we'll start at the bottom. Boston's gonna be my 5. I have Toronto, or Toronto in the 4, Tampa Bay at 3, the Yankees at 2, and Baltimore, the number 1, winning that division. Like I said, this is going to be one of the more competitive divisions. I expect at least 2, probably 3 of these teams to make the playoffs, in the AL at least. Uh, you have a couple of contenders out there in the West: Houston, Texas, Seattle. The Central is probably the weakest division in the AL, so I doubt they produce more than the 1. But that AL East is stacked. That AL East is not a division that, if I am picking one to be confident in, that's probably going to be the one that I'm the least confident in the AL, at least. Just because so much can happen. I feel like it's kind of the opposite of the way that the AL Central is, where all these teams are just kind of okay. All these teams in the AL East are great. So it's going to be a bloodbath in there. It is going to be so much fun to watch AL East baseball this season. Baltimore, I have winning this division, with Yankees, Tampa, Toronto, and Baltimore, and Boston pretty close behind. I think this is going to be very competitive. On the NL side of the Eastern Division, though, this one is a little less surprising to me. Atlanta just kind of far and away has the best roster in this division. Washington is still tanking. They didn't call up any of their young guys, the Nationals. They had a couple guys, James Wood especially, who was going off in spring training. They decided to leave him down in the minors. Not a decision I would have made, but a decision they did make. They are going to lose that division pretty easily. Philly always kind of puts up a fight, but Atlanta should run away with this division. Miami is they made the playoffs last year. They made the wild card, but they're not quite there. They're still a little lacking on the offensive side. Their pitching took a little bit of a step back this offseason. And I'm not sure exactly what Miami team we're going to get, because Miami could be very good. They could sneak into a wild card spot. They're not competing for this division. The Mets are a team that's more odd to me, because it was a quiet offseason for Jared Cohen. Usually he's out there spending big money, getting all the big free agents, but he kind of took a back seat this offseason. In off-season past, he's went out and got Lindor. He's went out and got Javi Baez. He went out and he got Max Scherzer last offseason, paying him more than the entire Athletics roster. So he kind of took a step back from giving out those mega contracts this offseason, and I'm interested to see how it affects the Mets. The Mets kind of had a disaster season last year. Everything kind of imploded on them. So I think they'll be better than last year. As far as making the playoffs go, they might compete for a wild card. My standings for the NL East, as we predictions wise, Washington, the Nationals are going to be there at the bottom. I'm gonna put Miami at 4, the Marlins and the Mets at 3, but I think the Mets and the Marlins are very close. I think those two are going to be separated by just a game or two as we get down the stretch of the season. Philly in second. The Phillies are, really good. They gave out a couple big contracts this offseason. They're really trying to go all in and get past Atlanta. And get a World Series. Atlanta is still my number 1. They're my World Series favorites. Their roster is just so stacked. Their pitchers, they probably have the best rotation in baseball. Spencer Strider, Chris Sale at the 4, Charlie Morton, Max Fried. That is terrifying. 1 to 4, number 5 isn't that bad either. They They are a loaded team. They have the reigning MVP in Ronald Acuna. They have Matt Olson, who probably is the second best first baseman in all of baseball, only behind Freddie Freeman. You have an elite defense in center with Michael Harris. You have really solid corner infield, third base. Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, one of the best second basemen in all of baseball. You can go up and down that roster. They are stacked at every single position. Not Will Smith. Sean Murphy, the catcher they got from Oakland, is a beast back there. That team is unfair. They have the best roster. They have one of the best. They can go toe to toe with the Dodgers roster wise on paper, and the Dodgers have an insane roster. You can make an argument that the Braves is better. That's how stacked this team is. The Braves are very good. They're gonna win this division. So coming out of this division, I think there's only going to be the Phillies and the Braves. I think the Phillies will be the only wild card. But we'll talk about all that in a little bit more in just a second. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to talk about the Central divisions, the AL Central and the NL Central. The NL Central is very interesting. That is kind of a toss-up between a whole bunch of teams, actually. The Central divisions are always crazy. So we'll break all of that down in just a second. Stick around. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.